Hello, hello. Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for being connected tonight, 8:39 p.m. We're going to talk about food and eating disorders and all these things that maybe they're sabotaging your life and your fitness and your nutrition, and you're working so hard, but you don't understand why you keep sabotaging yourself. Today, Robin, IIN certified health coach and life coach, right?
Yep.
Yeah, she's gonna be sharing today, my colleague, sharing today more in detail what she learned and how it can help us. Some tools and tips that you must not miss. So go ahead and grab your pen and paper and get this started. Robin, welcome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Okay, yeah, so my name is Robin. I am a certified health and life coach. I'm also a nutritionist, a nurse, mom of two, wife, all the things. So I got into emotional eating because that's my background, that's my story. I was um, just down to the book. I was the yo-yo dieter. Went from I think age 12 is when I started my first diet. So started going from diet to diet to diet to diet, and then eventually that turned into disordered eating. That lasted for many, many years. And it wasn't until just shortly before I started IIN that I was able to finally break free of all of that, and start to getting more in tune with my body and what was going on around me. I met a coach, and it's kind of been like all, down that path ever since then. Um, so yeah, so what exactly do you want me to answer? Like, I mean, we can go through like what exactly emotional eating is, because then there's emotional eating, there's binge eating disorder, there's, all these different avenues. So just like getting an idea of physical hunger versus emotional hunger.
Uh-huh. And
Um,
put yourself in mute, Leila, if you can, please, so we can.
oh, I thought you were talking to me.
Yeah, to Robin, except Robin, of course. Put yourself in mute. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead, Robin. All right, I got them in mute. So, Robin, and yeah, give us an the spectrum. So,
Yeah, so like there's physical hunger, which is like things that like it just comes on gradually, you are open, you want like all foods versus like emotional hunger typically comes on really, really suddenly, and you usually are craving like a couple different things. So like for me, it was usually sugar, which, there's the Ben and Jerry's, there's the sugar addict. And so that's kind of like, there's a couple little signs. What else? Oh yeah, and like you will eat past fullness. Like you just like absolutely cannot control that part of it. And then there's a lot of different signs as far as that. Like it's, usually a lot of it has to do with stress. So like you get the people that work long shift hours, they're coming home, the first thing they want to do is grab a bag of chips, grab their wine, and just start eating their feelings. They often have trouble losing weight. They're usually carrying a lot of weight in certain areas of their body. Um, so there's that. And then there's a 4-step process that I kind of like to walk my clients through as far as trying to get more in tune with their bodies, their feelings, and trying to break the cycle. And the first step is really getting in tune to becoming more mindful, like just you stopping yourself in the middle of the binge or whatever that like you're going to go start that emotional eating cycle. You're stopping yourself, you're just trying to get in tune with the emotion, figuring out what is going on here, and just not being judgmental on yourself, because that's another issue with them. Like they're very self-critical, talking down to themselves, self-sabotage, and just like always like putting themselves down, comparing themselves to others. So I like to suggest starting a food journal or an eating journal or even like an emotional journal. Like, what is happening in that moment? What are you feeling versus what is the food that you're craving? And what happened before that? Like, what emotion may have triggered that um, that eating or whatever. And then, or you can just, or you suggest to take a break, like stop what you're doing, walk away, go take some deep breaths, go for a short walk, that kind of thing. And then another option is meditating, to really get in tune with what's going on there. Or even some people really like having like something to like really focus on whenever they're in that moment. They're having that emotional thing going on, like whether it be an object, whether it be just a breathing exercise that they do. I have a client that has just like a picture that she'll just go and grab, and work through it that way. What else? Is there any questions?
No, so far I love what I'm hearing. You had the first step. It will be awareness, basically.
Awareness, yeah.
In the
Yeah, so like having like that imagery. Hold on, my phone is gonna die. Hold on, there we go. And then identifying the feelings before the eating. So usually, like when people emotionally eat, it's because there's an emotion attached to that. So whether that be you're lonely or you're tired or you're feeling shameful or there's a slew of things, and just trying to understand your feelings, um, and then what else, and then just like kind of coming up with a plan without food. Like, once you kind of like discover what it is that triggered that emotion and you want to kind of strategize a plan. So I like to use SMART goals. Are you familiar, Peggy, with SMART goals?
Yeah, SMART goals is small, measured, achievable. I forgot what R was.
Realistic and time-based.
Ah,
Yeah, so it has like actionable plan that you can stick to. So like some examples are like, I will make plans to see friends or family once a week, or I will eat 3 meals a day, Monday through Friday, or I will set alarms to remind me to eat at certain times. Because that's another problem amongst emotional eaters. Sometimes we will binge eat, but then there are other times where we will just forget to eat or just don't eat at all. And then you starve yourself all day, and we know what that does to your body. And then like the binge happens, and then you're usually not making the best choices for your body because it doesn't matter what it is. You just need to throw something into your mouth.
That's me.
Yeah, yeah, that was me. I was that person too.
Forget, and then by the time I remember, the stomach is remembering me. It's actually letting me know, Leslie, you hungry?
Yeah.
And then I just try to grab whatever I can.
Yeah. So I know. So and it's hard, and it's a process. So um I think of what else. What else? Does anybody have any questions?
so once you have a different plan, you have a small goal. Like I am an emotional eater too.
Yeah, I know. I think we talked about this.
Yeah, we talk about that. I have very weird processes in my life, but I learned that was part of my progress. So
Right.
from binging to bulimia to not eating to dieting, pills, and everything else. And I like what you said about the alarms because that worked for me. I'm an alarm freak. I put alarms for everything because I forget. And the worst part is that and I learned that I was transmitting that to my kids, the bad relationship with food. I could see that in my children, even the little one. Like, he will not eat. He doesn't like to eat because they can perceive like food is not good. So that's when I realized that I need to change and make changes. And the alarms is something that I really like. I put alarms to feed him, to feed myself, and
So it is really helpful to have those alarms. And like I'm the same thing. I have to have alarms for everything, or little reminders on my phone or in my planner or whatever it may be. But yeah, it does help.
Do you have any other tips? You said about 4-step process. So the awareness, the plan.
Yes, hold on. The awareness, the plan. Hold on.
Maybe support, maybe talking to somebody.
Yeah, I mean, definitely support and having an accountability partner. Like that's like a big thing. If you have a friend that you trust, or somebody that you trust, a coach that you trust, whoever it may be, having that just daily check-ins.
Daily check-in. So, you believe in the accountability. That's important.
Yeah, that's what it took for me. Like I needed somebody checking in with me daily, and having that support system.
That's what I did.
Huge.
That's what I did too. And that's what we do, accountability coaches.
Yeah. So that's what I do with my clients. I mean, I use a system so that we can communicate even when we're not on a call. So
that's fantastic. So anything else that you would like to add to the emotional eating?
Thanks. Do you have any specific questions?
Ladies, do you have any specific questions? Can you give us examples of what is binging?
Binge eating is eating like beyond fullness.
Why?
Like not.
Why do you think that happens?
I think, I don't know. I think it is part of the. Oh, sorry, something's breaking up.
All right, I think I'm muted. Everybody.
Hello.
Yeah.
What happened?
So you think it happens?
I mean, it's definitely triggered by an emotion, whether it be, just your body's way of telling you you're not getting a certain what your body is obviously craving something. But I don't know, like it's just
one of the things that I learned in my case is that the relationship that I have with food, it was misinterpreted by me when I started in a very young age. I remember that I don't know if it happened to you too. We were celebrating. Oh, let's go get an ice cream.
Oh yes, to be like rewarded, like for food, for like behaviors and stuff. Like that is, I've had to stop that with my kids because like I'm like, oh my gosh, like they think that they need, like, you're rewarding with food. Like that's like not a good thing to be doing.
And then you create this idea that everything has to be around food. And I remember to this day, I used to go to church. I didn't like to go to church, but my mom was motivating me to go to church by saying, hey, after church, we are going to get an ice cream cup because she knew that I loved ice cream. And at the end of a month, I was already 10 or 15 pounds in 1 month. And then I feel like you mentioned at the beginning, shame. I was talking negative to myself. It's like, oh, you're fat. But I was so young, I didn't understand all these feelings. It was just negative feelings that eventually, when
Yeah.
I was feeling lonely later in
Yeah.
life, I was going for ice cream because in my
Yeah.
was what I, so we had to retrain our brains so we can
Yeah.
have other alternatives. So now it became the exercise.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, and a lot of like binge eaters and emotional eaters have that addictive personality.
Yeah.
So a lot of them will like transition from like the binge eating or the emotional eating and then hopefully turn it into something more healthy. Um, but yeah, like we see a lot of like people that turn to like drugs or they'll turn to like alcohol or something else to like transition. Um, but yeah, it's definitely triggered by an emotion or something that may have happened in their past, like what you said, like getting like rewarded for like certain things with sugar or whatever the food might be. Um, so yeah, that is. And it's definitely psychological for sure.
Yeah, actually, that's what I was talking yesterday with someone that, for example, in my country, especially as a culture, in my country, where we were like younger, well, I'm still young, but they were more like if you're size 0 at 3, and you have your boobs, you're like the prettiest girl. Doesn't matter your face, that was the type of body that you're supposed to have. Size 5,
Right,
forget it. You're already being thick. 7, you're overweight. You
right.
know, that was something that it was like back in the day, and I always was the thick one, you know, compared
Yeah,
to size 0 or size 2 or size 3. You
yeah,
know, I never make it to that until I came here, and for birth control, I went down to like actually a size 3 after I had my son. But that was a culture,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
and it's a lot of pressure when you're in that age that you're growing and you wanted to eat. You know, I'm Peruvian, so food is like you had to eat breakfast, you had to eat 1 o'clock, then you have a 5 o'clock lunch, and then you have to eat dinner. And I wasn't eating because I was like a really picky eater.
yeah,
And I remember when I was like when I get here, the way I used to feel myself was with coffee. I ran on coffee all day until 2,
yeah,
3 o'clock in the afternoon. And then I was like, okay, this is the time to eat.
yeah, yeah.
The older you get, that's when they get you too, because your metabolism start like going
Yeah.
slower.
Yeah. So, I know. That was me. Like, I was younger and I always had this expectation that I had to be stick thin. You weren't going to be accepted if you were anything bigger than that. And then I
Hmm.
went to like modeling school and then they were, yeah, it was just like that. Like, they, like, if you were anything bigger than like a size 4, you were like in the plus size category. And that was not okay with me. So that like totally screwed up with my head. Um, and that's kind of when it started. It was like, so yeah, be careful how you're talking about yourself around your children, and just pushing that body positivity onto yourself and to them because they're watching.
I like that. I like that because
Yeah,
you're always watching. No matter what you
they're
say,
always watching.
no matter
Yeah,
what
because I mean,
it's what you do.
yeah,
You
Yeah,
express,
they watch my Instagram.
they watch us and they
yes. So
follow us.
push that body positivity as much as you possibly can, and yeah,
I appreciate this time. Thank you so much,
of
Robin.
course. You're welcome. Anytime.
Great tools, great information, great awareness because that's the first step. And then keep working. It's a journey, it's not a
Working.
destination. So it doesn't matter. Sometimes you learn new things, but just
Yeah,
digging deep. Is there
dig
any
deep.
book that you recommend us maybe talking about nutrition
Emotional eating.
or maybe emotional eating or a movie?
Um, Emotional eating specifically. Let me see. I'll have to give you some names.
Don't worry. I have one that is called Fed Up. I like it.
Oh, I've heard of that. I haven't read it though, so I can't say for sure.
I will give you guys another one that that they give it in church, and actually it's a person that suffer for a eater disorder, and she came out with the book, and I will see if I find it tomorrow in church, and then I'll send you guys like.
Yeah, post it in the group.
Yeah, I'll think of some names. I have some books. I can't think of the top of my head, but
put it in the group. I recorded this, and I'm gonna finish now the recording.